Think we're good. Hello, everybody. 1 second as we are getting things together. All right, everybody. Hello, hello. I think we got people coming in. I see Karen again. We got Melissa, Stacy. I mean, literally, I smile every time I see your coffee mug in the morning, so I get to see you in person. It's awesome. Lauren, I appreciate Lauren joining us. Wow. Oh, wow. We have someone who actually did a deal with me, Kim. Someone that actually worked with me is joining us. Why don't you speak up, person who just did a deal with me, and tell me how wonderful it was to work with me? You know who you are. You can speak up. Maybe she's not able to.
Yeah, we have just deal with you. It was wonderful. Yeah, thank you so much. Transaction was great. Yeah.
Yes, it was, but it was also great because of you too.
Thank
Um,
you.
by the way, everybody, I've spoken about the scenario with Gianna a little bit in our sessions, and Ina was the listing agent on the deal where Gianna got the house. So I don't even know if she knows that whole story that she was a part of, but I appreciate you joining us. I love that you get to join us. That's awesome. All right. Oh, my phone should not be going off. That's terrible. All right. So Kim is dealing with something right now. So before we get started, everybody, I want to let everybody know, if you don't know already, Kim has been, if you followed her on Facebook, you're probably going to get more followers based on this story, just so you know, Kim. You're probably going to grow immensely based on this story. But if you guys don't know, Kim's been dealing with a lot. So Kim, why don't you tell everybody what you've been dealing with?
Yeah, I have been dealing with a cyber security issue where I guess in some, random hack, like it seems like every day, right? The past 6 months, you've gotten some kind of like, if you were a customer of Walmart or this or that, your information, is not secure. So I don't know where exactly, but I do know that 3 days ago, I received a text that said, your T-Mobile password has been changed. If you didn't do this, please call us immediately. So I got on the phone and called, and then as I'm waiting on hold in the queue to talk to a person, I get another text, your number has begun porting. And then my phone went silent and I didn't have access to my phone anymore. And so I was on hold on another device. Luckily, I have two phones. I have a business phone and a personal phone. So I had another phone because I can't even imagine if you only had one phone, what you would do. You get a text saying your number has begun porting. And then, I mean, you'd use Jackie's phone. Hopefully she's home. And, but luckily I had another phone. So I was able to get on the phone with T-Mobile. I was on hold for forever. I started driving to the store because I was like, okay, I'm going to be on hold for forever there, and my phone just disappeared. And my last thing I saw was your number has been ported, and if you didn't authorize this, please call us, which I did, but they weren't answering. So I drove to the store. The store was not able to help. They said just wait on hold on the phone. So 2 hours later, someone on the phone actually picked up, and they said your number has been hijacked and it has been ported to another, we've lost it. We've lost your phone number. We don't know where it went, but we'll try to get it back. And so a few hours later, they did get my phone number back. They were able to stop the porting and they were able to put it back on my device. In that quick time period that these hackers had my phone number, they then used my phone number to be able to do third-party authentication texts to all of my bank accounts, credit cards, everything. So everywhere you go that, you log in and it says sending a text, they were the ones getting the text, not me. So they had all the codes. So then they changed it all to their information, drained bank accounts. Like, it's insane. I feel like it's like not real life and it's like a movie. So I've been actively trying to come back from that, but my phone now has not been working ever since that. It's not, I've been told by T-Mobile, it is not in the hands of the hackers anymore. I don't have to worry as much about that, but it's not provisioning right, because I guess when it got ported out and then ported back in, it didn't come back right. So
That's a lot. Yeah.
my phone is somewhere in Cyberland. It randomly connects and then it disconnects for 5 hours and then it connects again. And I spent like 5 hours in the T-Mobile store getting a new device because they were like, maybe it's a hardware issue. So I bought a new phone, and same thing. So we're actively trying to figure out where my phone number is and why it doesn't want to stay attached to my phone anymore. But with that said,
You might be in and out of this. You
I
might
might
be a little distracted.
you might have me for a shorter period of time than normal today, because I am expecting a call back from an executive level tech support person from T-Mobile, and if they call, unfortunately, that needs to be my number one priority.
I think we're all going to be okay with that. I will say this in a very, you basically just described, and I think everybody would agree that you just described what everybody's nightmare is. That we all basically wake up in these nightmares and have these. So I feel for you, and I know you're going to get through this nightmare that you're dealing with, but I'm pretty sure that you can go if you have to go and deal with what you have to deal with to get through this. But the longest story short is, you are going to now teach it. You know what? This is going to be turned into positive. Adam's going to find a positive this for you. Ready?
Now a cybersecurity class.
You are going to teach a class now. And what do we teach classes on? Our own experiences, our own personal experiences and things we deal with and what we learn. And I'm going to tell you right now, Jackie and I are sitting here going, all right, what do we have to do? What do we have to do to make sure this doesn't happen? And maybe there might be no better to teach the real estate agents out there how to avoid what your nightmare is.
So first and foremost, everyone, literally, let's pause for a minute. Everyone take out your phone, go into your account settings. In most phones, so not your actual phone, but in your app for your provider, right? So you log into your Verizon app, your T-Life app.
Here we go. This is where she's getting too detailed.
And so in that app, well, no, because we tried to explain it to someone else and they were looking in their phone settings. And I'm like, no, you have to be in your cell phone provider's app. So whatever your cell phone service is, this is where you're going to do this. You can have your cell phone provider turn on SIM blocking and port blocking. And that means if someone tries to put your phone number on a different SIM card in a different device or port your phone number to another company altogether, they cannot do that without your permission. Now, the fact that people can do that currently without people's permission makes literally no sense to me. That should just be an automatic given that's blocked, right?
Yes. So you're going to tell that to the executive at T-Mobile when you get off the phone with us, and you're going to do that again and again. But you're gonna put together your next great thing, which is the class that you're going to teach on making sure none of us in the group ever have to deal with this, that you're dealing with it, right?
But no, seriously, everyone should do that right now, because that is such a key thing that if that was on, none of this would have ever happened. So everyone literally should just turn that on right now, and then you can have a little step of fear removed.
Okay. Everybody doesn't have an excuse going forward from now on. If this happens to you and you're in this session with us, or you're on Facebook and you're learning, you have no one to blame but yourselves, because Kim has taught us all that we should have done this. Does everybody agree? Is everybody going to do it? Yes. Good. All right. Let's talk about goals. And by the way, during the session today, I can't wait. We're going to be joined by a guy named Garrett Maroon, who I can't wait to share with you when he's able to join us. But he wrote a book we're going to talk about, and he sent this book to me, and it literally could not be a better, more perfect scenario book to talk about what we're going to talk about today, which is goals. It is November, Kim, and I feel like for 20 years in a row in November, at some point, maybe 15 years ago, because I wasn't doing it, I was failing by for 5 years, not even coming up with goals. But at some point, my business partner came to me 15 years ago and said, it's time to come up with your goals for next year. And I was like, what do you mean? And so tell me, is this basically the same time you do it with the team?
Yeah, pretty much November, early December is when we start talking about it. And we sit down and kind of talk about things that, we want to track and how we want to improve and what we want those goals to be. What you first, you have to look at what was this year, so what did you do this year? And sometimes we even jump back to last year. So because we're still in this year. So this is what you did last year. This is where you are year to date current. What do you want to do next year?
Yeah. So the way I want to talk about today, I want to break it down in almost 3 areas, and I don't want to miss the most important things. because I think there's way more important things to talk about first before we talk about numbers. So we're going to talk today first about why our goals matter to us. How is our effect going to go? How is our goals going to affect us? Then I want to talk about what we're going to track so we understand what we're tracking. And I'm going to talk about the buying side a lot, but what are we tracking? And then finally, we're going to talk about how we're going to judge ourselves against our goals. But I do think we have to start with why we have the goals. By the way, let's get back to the beginning. Why are we doing this in November? Well, the work that we're doing, unfortunately, real estate, maybe we should have been doing this in August and July, because on the buying side, the work that we're doing today isn't actually going to hit our results for months down the road. The stuff that we're going to talk about today are actions and activities that will get us to our results. But in reality, if we have goals for January, you can't start January with the activities to get the results. And on the buying side, especially, the time frame to take somebody from consultation to the result used to be 3 months. Now it's, maybe it's 6 months because of inventory. So we literally should have been coming up with these goals for January, probably 3 months ago. But I do want to start with the fact that you got to get this done early. And you have to take your time to really hone in on your goals way before the year actually starts. So you might even be late if you haven't been doing it. So I think that's a good starting point. But if you don't mind, we're going to start with the emotional end of this, because I think I'm going to give my history a little bit, and John's going to join us. John was my business partner for many, 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 many years. And when we started 15 years ago, we went to a business planning clinic. And in the business planning clinic, you go over the numbers. What numbers of deals do I want to do? Like what do I want to get in terms of how much income? So I would go to the clinic, spend the whole day, and I would tell him my goal is 50 transactions. That's how many buyers I want to help buy a house. And then I'd go through the year and I'd help 35 people or 38 people. And we'd have our same meeting in November. And like you said, we talk about the previous year. And then we talk about going into next year. And I'd always be talking about, well, I got 38 deals done. But the negative impact on me really wasn't negative at all. Like, I had this goal. I was 12 deals short, but I was pretty happy with my life. And I had found that I was actually really happy with my life after only getting to my 38. And a year after year, though, I'd say, but next year, my goal is 50. And every year I'd go to him and I'd say, next year, my goal is 50. And he'd be like, well, how happy are you in the previous year? Because you haven't hit 50, never hit 50. You're pretty happy. And it wasn't until I don't know how many years went by that I realized it doesn't make sense to come up with this number of deals, number of transactions, number of people that I'm going to help buy a house until I first got into my why. Like, why was I coming up with it? I know you do this. It's hard to do this sometimes with your team, with our teams, because it was hard for my business partner to sit with me and really hone in. But why? But why? How many times can you ask somebody over and over again, but why? But tell me, I want to hear, at least tell me, when you create your goals, do you start with how it's going to impact you?
Well, we have a sheet we use, and two of the things on that are personal goals. So because I always feel like, it shouldn't just be numbers. Like if you want, I'll read you the sheet. I have it in front of me.
Yeah, I love this.
All right. So first at the top, we look at, like I said, the previous years. We look at units and 1099 income. And then, so at the top we have that's like the first two things, and then we have more. So we do the prior full year, because that's a full year. Then the year we're in year to date and kind of where we're projecting to be at the end of this year, and then setting the goal for next year. So like I said, units, 1099 income are, the first two, but then in addition to that, we also have open houses held, if you want to keep yourself accountable to getting out there in a certain amount of open houses. Contacts added to database if you're trying to constantly grow your database. How many buyer consultations they did. How many hours of lead gen, like purposeful lead gen they did. And then we also add in how many team meetings and office meetings that they attended, just to, keep accountable to, are you showing up every day? And are you going to the office? Are you Are you going to the meetings? And then the last two are picking two personal goals. And we've had, people say, I want to go for a daily walk, or I want to drink more water, or I, want to take, vacations more. I want to save for a investment home. I want to, so we like to focus too on, not just the business goals, but the personal goals. Because like the point of all the business goals if you don't have personal goals too.
I want to circle back to that because everything you described were the details and the numbers and the tracking items. We're going to get to that. Like, I want to talk about what items we're tracking, but I think what I want to start with is there's two questions that I think that need to be asked when we come up with the number. Before they come up with a number of, say, how much money they want to make, if that's basically the end point, usually you can say 1099, whatever we want to come up with. Usually people are coming up with, how much money do I want to make? But I think that there's two questions we have to ask ourselves when we do that. How is it going to positively affect my life if I get to that? If I hit that number, if I get to that number, what's it going to do for my life? What's it going to do for my financial stability? What's it going to do for my family? What's it going to do for my freedom and time? What's it going to do if it makes me to make me less overwhelmed? More opportunities for more opportunities. Like, what is it going to do for my life if I do hit these goals? And then on the flip side, I think we need to hit harder with how are we going to be negatively affected? How is our life going to be negatively affected? How are we going to be negatively affected personally if we don't get it? How much more stress is it going to put on us if we don't hit that goal? What is it going to do in terms of limiting our life and our freedom? Like, are we going to miss opportunities if we don't hit that goal? Because when I was circling back every year to John, I didn't have enough negatives on, there wasn't negatives on how not hitting the goal was affecting my life. And it was okay, by the way, that I changed my goal, that I actually reduced my goal down to 38 or 39. And I knew that the actions and activities that we're going to talk about and the things that I could track, not only just tracking the numbers, but how I could judge my tracking later on. But I think we have to spend more time talking about what are these goals going to do to affect us? How is hitting it going to affect us? And actually, I think all of us need to be doing that right now. And you know what's funny? You said something that I didn't have written down. You said, looking at our past year. If you hit your goal in the past year, how did hitting your goal positively affect your life? What did it do for you? What did it give you? Like, what did it do for your family? How many things could you do for your kids? Like, what did it do to positively affect you? Because I think that's what's going to motivate you to either keep up that goal, or maybe it didn't do enough and you have to up your goal for the next year. And so I didn't even think about first starting out with, how did our last year affected us positively and then negatively? If I didn't hit my goal, what did that do to me? Like, what did that do for my life? It's not always the market or the conditions that we didn't get our goals. And so, man, I think, does anybody, like, can you really sit down and then go, like, drop in the comments, what would reaching your goals improve your life? What's one thing that if you reached your goals, how would that improve your life? By the way, the reason why I'm saying this is too often we're judging ourselves on other people. Adam wanted to hit 50 transactions or help 50 buyers or do 50 deals, however you want to put it, because someone else was on stage that hit 50. Someone else was on a panel that hit 50. The truth is, someone might be hitting 50 and then regretting missing moments of their life and actually having a horrible life and being unhappy in their life. And so often I was literally saying, well, it's 50 because I was judging it against other people. We're going to talk about, I said we're going to start with why, but I do want to I said we're going to talk about what we're tracking and why we're tracking and how we're going to track these numbers. But I do think it starts with, how is it going to affect us and how did it affect us, either hitting it or not? What are people putting in the comments? I love this. By the way, you can unmute. If you want to raise your hand and tell me this year how your goals affected you positively or negatively, I'd love to hear it. This is like a total conversation. Anybody want to unmute? I know I have somebody I'm going to call out. man, it can't be more perfect. Like sometimes, man, Kim, I know you're busy and I want to hear a lot of things from what you have to say, but I think this is a good opportunity to give you a break
No, I want to
because,
hear from everyone else. Yeah.
yeah, look, this is going to be awesome because we are going to spend some time today talking about the what's, the numbers. And I actually said when I created this today that everybody talks about the numbers, appointments set, appointments met, all the income and the average sale price equating to these numbers. But man, if we do, I'd rather spend the whole time talking about, look, come up with your goals, but understand how those goals are going to balance against your life. My friend Garrett is going to speak up now because man, am I grateful for the opportunities that I've had to actually just see people. By the way, social media can be an amazing thing when you pay attention and actually find people who literally are like-minded, but that are doing amazingly great things. And man, maybe none of you have ever heard of Garrett Maroon. And that's a shame, but I'm ecstatic that I'm able to actually connect you with him because I'm starting to follow him and I've only spoken to him for what we spoke, man. It was like an hour, I think, buddy. You can go off mute.
Yeah.
But we spoke for an hour and I felt like it could have been 8 hours because, man, I felt like I was talking to someone who was the same as me. And this man has gone further than me. And I showed you guys, and we're going to put it in the comments, but this awesome person was really kind enough to send me the book he wrote. The book he wrote is called The Balanced Breakthrough: Winning at Work Without Losing at Life. I feel like when you hear me talking, like literally this is what it's speaking to. Am I right, bud?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why don't you go off? I need you to go off and speak. Tell me how you're connecting, how this connects to that.
Yeah, well, so and man, thanks for letting me talk. I mean, I'd love to hear from other people too, but I was just thinking of stories as and a few of those are in the book, but I'll tell you two quick examples. One was a woman I'd given this talk that ended up being the book. And this is probably 2.5 years ago. A woman comes up to me. She introduces herself afterwards as a solo agent and a mom. She said, Garrett, last year I sold 55 homes and it was her best year ever, which is amazing. And she said, everyone's asking me, what am I going to do this year? So I keep telling them 60 or 70 because we're just supposed to keep growing, right? And she said, Garrett, after hearing your talk, I'm going to sell 30 homes this year and it's going to change my life. And I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. Tell me why. She said, Garrett, I got into this industry because I wanted to pick up my daughter from school every day. Guess what I haven't done because I've been so busy selling homes, right? And I do think that, on the flip side of that, okay, so I'll give you another quick example. Flip side of that.
Keep going, man. Like, this is what I need. Like,
yeah.
They hear too much from me, buddy. They hear way too much from me. Keep going.
Yeah, no, happy to share whatever, buddy. But so then 2 years ago, right, a similar time frame, at the end of the year, we're at the Realtor Awards, right? Realtor Prom is what I call it because that's totally what it is. And the guy, and I won't say his name, but the guy who was the #1 agent in our market, right, was super impressive. It was broadly known that year that his business had lost money. He'd gotten divorced and he wasn't talking to his oldest son, right? He's older. So his oldest son was in his 20s. And what was happening, right? He was getting celebrated, being the #1 agent. He was taking selfies with everybody, right? He was doing all the things. Everyone was, oh my gosh, how do I be #1 agent? And he went home to an empty house. Like, that's not winning. That's not success, right? And so we live in an industry that is constant. I love that you said we need to stop comparing ourselves because what happens every single month? Hey, guess who was the #1 agent in the office? Here's a social media post, right? $1 Million Agent Club, all these things. Well, what about the person that's like, hey, whatever, my wife homeschools our kids. I homeschool my kids. I only have time to do 10. That's winning. Right. And so the definition of success and winning has gotten all kinds of screwed up in our world, certainly and definitely in our industry. And so I think it needs to become so personal, right? To say, I don't care what Adam does. What matters is what I do. Right. And is it the right thing for my family? I've got 5 little kids, right? Is it the right thing for my family? And if it is, if I'm
5 people, 5. He said 5. I just want to make sure I stopped at 5. He said 5 kids. Go ahead.
I'm very tired. I am very tired. My wife more than me. But right at the end of the day, it's a question of what do I need to achieve, right? The ripple effect of you were talking about, the ripple effect of making the decisions to say, what does it look like if I sell, I've been fortunate, sold 650 homes in 11 years, but what does it look like to sell 10 next year? What does it look like to sell 20? Maybe some of you say, I had a great year. What does it look like to sell fewer? Because I missed too many soccer games. Or, some reason we wear a badge of honor being on vacation. Like, look at me, I'm writing an offer at the beach. That's not, why are we proud of that? Right. And so maybe it's just redefining what winning looks like. I teach the scoreboard in the book. So for me, it's three things. It's a profit goal, a wife goal, and a kid goal, right? So like the kid goal, for example, is take every seventh week off. If a client needs me to work in that seventh week and it's not going to matter, hey, sorry, I'm going to either pass you to somebody else, or, if you're okay to wait, that's awesome. But I'm going to honor my family first. And so I think when we make those decisions, when we honor what matters, when we have the right order, right, when we're ambitious at home first, then we can be more ambitious in work. I think when we honor those things, the business comes. The people that respect that will come, and they will respect you and wait for you. And so they don't require you to be out of order. And I think a lot of us are afraid of building that kind of business. But man, when I started to really hardcore honor my family time, my business grew. Right. When I worked fewer hours, my business got better because my clients would leave a voicemail and say, hey, I know it's date night, so please don't call me back, but just want to let you know something. Please give me a call tomorrow whenever you get a chance. If I can't take care of my family, I can't take care of theirs. And so I think we need to be diligent in saying, I got to honor my family first, or whatever your scenario, I got to honor that first. Once I've done that, then I will work with excellence in the time that I have to build a successful business and be, great customer service, great lead generation, all those things.
You know what's funny? The reason why I'm doing this, and what we're almost halfway, 4:30 right now, and we haven't gotten to what are we tracking and what numbers do we need to understand and how are we going to get there? Because I really think that too many agents breeze over it almost as I got my why, I'm moving on, but not really understanding and impact what that's going to do to affect their lives. By the way, this is so weird. I did not set this up. I didn't say, okay, I met Garrett and we're going to get him on and he's going to speak, and I just met him. It literally has accidentally happened where this is literally the perfect scenario at the perfect time. And if you guys don't hear him talking and going, man, this is why I wonder why Adam loves hearing him talk, because I feel like he's living a similar life to me where it took a lot for me to give up daddy-daughter days. There was a time in my real estate career when the girls were young, and someone said to me, you got to give up one day. And I did it. And I thought, oh, I'm going to lose clients. If I don't answer the phone on daddy-daughter days, on Mondays, I'm going to lose clients. I'm going to miss an opportunity. All of a sudden, now there's only 6 days to work. I'm going to lose deals. And the flip side happened. I tell my clients in consultation, Mondays are daddy-daughter days, and they love me more for it. They respect me more for it. So, man, like the fact that we're going to focus on, like, how are these goals going to affect the people around us in our life? I literally am sick and tired of the award ceremonies. I'm sick and tired. By the way, these award ceremonies happen in March for the year previous. Like, so we're celebrating, we're going to get an award for 50 transactions and how much income. And no one's talking about how they get there. No one's talking about the impact on the life to get to those transactions, because the people that are benefiting are the owners of these offices. And the profit center makes profit when you do transactions. The divorce doesn't affect the profit center. The unhappy family doesn't. We are going to, like, you have to. And it doesn't have to be where I do transactions, make a lot of money, and now I can decide to choose my life first. You can choose your home life first and actually get to, I wish I would have gotten to a point earlier where 35 transactions was my goal, because I would have probably gotten my actions to be even better and better and better, and gotten faster to those 35 transactions because I was better at the actions that we took.
Well, that's the funny part is you, instead of saying, okay, I got to 35 transactions, now I want to get to 50, maybe it should have been, okay, I got to 35 transactions, now I want to get to that same 35 transactions, but in less time, or,
oh my God,
or with a couple vacations added on, or not working on Mondays and Fridays, or whatever it is, rather than, like, we always think it has to be a unit or a monetary increase, but maybe the units and the monetary stay the same, but the personal time increased.
Well, I'm going to make it even easier, because the next thing we're going to talk about what we're tracking, but what about if I do this in a certain way? Those 35 deals come to me from referrals and repeat business. And because I built it the way where my clients love me and I love my life at the same time, I can actually do 35 transactions without doing open houses, or without having to call internet leads, or without, and can I build this business? And what Garrett, I know, same way, Kim, same way, me, like literally we built it to a point where I was in a phone booth responding to 150 internet leads to now where 95% of my business in almost the same number of transactions is now not in that phone booth. So literally, and now I get my life back. But you have to start with the balance of your life. You have to start with that. And I literally want everybody, like, because the people in the coaching academy, like, we talk about this. You're not going to do the actions that it's going to take unless you understand how it's going to affect you. And I said this before, and I don't know if you talk about this in the book, but there's a positive influence on how it's going to positively affect me if I get my goals. If I hit my goals, I'll be able to go on the vacations I want with my family, pay for colleges and weddings, because, I don't have sons, so I'll be paying for weddings. Or we could be thinking about the amount of time that we're spending doing it. So,
yeah. Adam, can I say one thing? Do you mind, buddy? I'm sorry, real quick. So, yeah, I mean, as an encouragement, right? So, for me, right, and it was mostly because I was just stubborn early on, but I've never done an open house. I didn't grow up here. I'm not from here. I had 40 people in my database when I started. I've never done an open house. I never bought a lead. I've never made a cold call. I've never door knocked. I've never done any of that. It's been 100% referral, right? And it's been over 650 homes, because Adam is exactly right. Like, it is the heart behind the consistency of showing up well, but you can't show up well if you're burnt out, right? Because you miss all the kids' soccer games, you miss all the things, you miss family dinner every single night. So, those things are correlated. But I'd also encourage, and I love what Kim was talking about. I think the problem is we ask bad questions of ourselves. So what I mean is, if someone asks me, Adam, how do I sell 30 homes next year? I would honestly say that's the easiest question in the world. Work 120 hours, borrow 100 grand, spend all of it. You'll find 30 deals. We need to ask the right questions of ourselves, right? When you ask a bad question, you get a bad answer. If we ask the right question, and Kim was talking about this too, if we ask the question, let's say it's, how do I sell 30 homes next year and not miss family dinner and not work on Sundays, whatever your scenario is. If you ask that question, it's going to force you to build the right kind of business. It's going to force your mind to say, okay, there's a bajillion ways to build the business. I got to find the one that's going to actually serve that life. And so for me early on, my wife came to me and said, hey, I figured out a way to sell 50 homes. I was in my second year. I can sell 50 homes this year. It's just going to cost like 60, 70 hours a week. And she said, and she totally had the right. She said, I love that idea. I said, okay, what do you think? She said, do it in under 40 hours though. I was like, what? How is that even possible? But she set the time limit, which business is an us thing, not a me thing. She totally had the right to do it, but it forced me into a position in the best way possible to say, how in the world am I going to do that? And that's where it was. The only way I know how to do that is by becoming excellent at generating referrals. That's the only way I can think of doing it. And so it forced me to say, everything else is noise. I'm going to do this one thing because I had a better question. Right. And I think we missed that. We ask ourselves the wrong question, and so we get the wrong answer. Then we wonder what went wrong. I think we've got to start there. That's my opinion.
I love that. The one thing I wanted to hit home with also is, I think we have to think about the negative. I know that sounds horrible because I'm Mr. Positive and I like talking about positive, but what's the negative effect on our life if we don't hit our goals? Because I actually think you'll end up hitting a true goal. Because I knew the positives that were going to affect me when I hit 50, if I hit 50. But I also didn't know what was the negative effects if I don't, but there can be negative effects if I hit 50 also. Because I can hit 50 and have negative effects on my life. And I think we talk about, we have our goals and we go, I have 50 goals because I want to do all this vision board, right? It's all about the vision board and what we want to have in our life. But what we don't do is talk about how is it on either side going to affect us negatively. If we don't hit the goal, how are we negatively going to be affected? Because that will motivate us. I think that's the motivation to get into the actions and activities we have to do, because we don't want to have the negative. But also there's a negative too, looking at the year and saying, like you just said, 50 transactions or 60 transactions could have meant that you got divorced, lost everything.
I was just going to say, there's a reason why real estate has the highest divorce rate.
I really, and I love that we're still far into this, talking still about the why, because everybody in our group, everybody that should be hearing this, should be starting and spending more time on how it's going to affect them and how their life is going to be positively and negatively affected either way, because then you're going to come up with a number, and then you're going to really truly understand how your year is going to be affected either way by getting that number. Can we move? I want to move on. I want to move on to what we're going to actually be looking at. What do we need?
What can I say one thing before you move on?
Always. I'm not going to say that.
No, an impactful thing one time when I was having this exact conversation with my real estate coach, and I was, having that conversation like you in the, phone booth making 150 calls. And so at the time, it was a different coach. He said, why, in that moment, why is your client more important than your family? And my response was, I think it's because my client can fire me if I don't, act instantly when they need me. And he said, your family can fire you too, but it's divorce, or it's your kids never talking to you again when they grow up to be adults, and you don't think of it that way. Your family can fire you. You think they can't because the client's more instant, but they can, and it's a much bigger deal if they do.
Also, if we want to go deeper, big man, I'm going to hit the heart. At some point, we're going to hit somebody's heart where they're going to make this change, but it isn't even about your family not being there. You might not be there. Your family might not physically be there. Things happen in our lives that we miss, that we regret missing, and those people aren't there anymore. That those people aren't in our lives anymore because of whatever happened. Death causes us to regret the fact that we didn't spend the time with people because we're working so much. And all of a sudden we look at the end of the year and go, wow, I did this many deals, but how many people did I lose? Anybody that I could have spent more time with?
There was an agent that a couple years ago called me, and she said, I'm stepping outside. We were in the middle of a transaction. She's like, I'm stepping outside. She's like, I'm so sorry. I was in my mother's funeral. I'm stepping outside. I said, oh my God, hang up the phone right now. This can wait. I never want to hear someone again say, I'm stepping outside of a funeral, or I'm stepping outside of a wedding, or no.
And by the way, that person got the 80 deals. All right. So I think when we do this, I think when we do it in this way and we sit down and really spend more time talking about why, we can understand that the work we're going to do is what's going to get us there. Like, it's not going to take tasks to get us to our goals. It's going to take repetitive, sometimes tedious work. Like, you have to understand why. I had to understand why I was sitting in that phone booth. And by the way, I say this about that phone booth because when Garrett was talking about this, when his wife was said, well, it's going to take 60 hours to 70 hours a week. But if I said it's going to take me to be in that phone booth 60, 70 hours a week, I was going to find a way to be in that phone booth for 40 hours a week. But I was going to be in that phone booth working. And I knew that if I wasn't doing the work, then all of those negative things are going to happen in my goals, or the positive things could happen if I did the work. And so the reality is this. I've been saying this to a lot of people recently. In real estate, we are unemployed. We are absolutely unemployed every morning of every day. Unless you're getting paid a salary, you are literally having to wake up every day and try to get a job interview, because we're all trying to get new clients, new buyers, and new sellers. And we're literally spending every day focusing on getting job interviews. And most of the people in our lives who get unemployed, I've been unemployed. I've been blessed to only be unemployed once and have to literally get laid off and go find a new job. But when I was laid off, I had to get job interviews. And maybe I had to get 7 or 8 job interviews and I got that job. In real estate, you're literally, if your goals are to help 40 people a year, you might have to schedule 120 job interviews. But I don't think we wake up every morning realizing that we're unemployed. And it's going to take work to get to the goals that we have, that we want to reach those goals. And it's going to take focusing on getting new job interviews and focusing on how we're getting new job interviews and getting those opportunities. But it's waking up feeling like you're unemployed. And it's not the fun work. It was never fun when I was unemployed to go try and get a job interview. That was never fun at all. Garrett, what do you got to say to that?
Yeah, I think that's the uniqueness, right? Of we wake up every day unemployed. And I think ultimately, at least in my experience, everything comes down to, for agents, is we either don't know what to do, and if we do, we don't do it often enough. I mean, like, it is almost that simple. We overcomplicate. Complexity doesn't scale. It actually fails, right? Simplicity is what scales. And so when we really have clarity, I've been talking about the fable of the tortoise and the hare, right? Be the tortoise, don't be the hare. The hare that just sprints and gets busy. And then it's like, oh my gosh, I forgot to do lead generation. And now, you're up and down all the time. At least what I teach, right? And I talk about this in the book too, but the 3 L's, every single day I was getting in for an hour. I was learning, I was spending an hour lead generating, and I was spending 15 minutes launching my day. And I really believe if you can push your mind and your business forward every single day, right? Monday to Friday, take it seriously. it's not going to happen right away, right? Let's be honest about that. But the compounding effect, if you do that for 50 weeks, 250 hours of learning, 250 hours of lead generation, and then do it again, and then do it again, it's the compounding effect of all that effort, right? That's going to pay off. And it does. I'm sure for Kim and Adam, I've never seen someone actually be consistent on the right work and it doesn't pay off. I can't always tell you
That's
when,
right.
but it will pay off. There is no question. So we just
All
give
right.
up too quickly. Yeah.
So you're talking about the how, and we are going to get to the how. I want to talk about at least, all right, what are the numbers that we are tracking? Because it's not just, okay, how much money do I want to make? We need to know, obviously, our average sale prices. Like, okay, like we can reverse engineer all the way down from how much money do I want to make, knowing my average sale price, knowing my average income split, knowing everything about my business, down to how many transactions do I need to do to get to my goals. And then we sit there and we go, okay, how many transactions do I need to do every single month? We need to go way further with what we're tracking if we really want to see how successful we are, but also know where we need to get better.
Mhm.
So the first thing is, are you tracking how many contacts you're entering into your database? Are you tracking how many new people are entering into your database? And by the way, if you're not tracking, I'm going to go over this real quickly. The numbers that I believe you need to track. I'm going to tell you, if you're not tracking those numbers right now, well, in a year from now, you're going to be in the same screwed position, not knowing your numbers. So even if you're not tracking these numbers now, you better start tracking so that in 1 year from now, you're going to be able to say, all right, now I know, okay, it took this many people that I added to my database this year to get to the end result of how many deals. Because in reality, it's going to start with how many new people you add to your database, and it's going to end with how many people did you help buy or sell a house. So let's start with tracking that. Now, the second thing we're going to track, well, you're speaking to people, you're adding them to your database. How many appointments are you setting with people? I don't care if it's listing or buyer appointments. And by the way, you should be tracking these as separate businesses. The buying side of your business should be tracked separately from the listing side, because your conversion from someone who sets a listing appointment with you is going to almost always show up, or you're going to show up because you're the one showing up. But when you're doing a buyer consultation, you're going to have less conversion because you're going to set appointments and some people won't show up. So what I'm saying is track them separately. So we're tracking how many people we add to our database maybe together. And then separately, we're tracking how many listing appointments did I set and how many buyer consultations did I set. Once we do that, we're going to track how many of these appointments we actually do. So we're going to go, all right, I know how many appointments I set. I know how many appointments I actually did. And now we're going to understand our set to met ratio. Because if you understand at the end of next year, it took me this many contacts to get this many appointments, to get this many people that show up for the appointments. And then we're going to track how many people hired us, and then how many people went under contract and settled. If we know each of those numbers, you're going to be able to look back next year and go, okay, it took this many appointments to set this many people, and you're going to be able to know your entire conversion from beginning to end, from contacts entered to deals done. So first and foremost, you need to track those numbers on both sides of your business right now. Even if you're not, you're never going to be able to know, I got to 40 transactions. You're not going to know how you got there. So the first thing is that, does anybody have any questions about those numbers? That's my opinion. I know we have a lot of other numbers that Kim tracks. She tracks how the business comes in, like where is the referral source coming from? But more importantly, what I want to track is my appointments set, my appointments met, how many of those people hired me? If they hired me, how many of those people actually got under contract? And if they went under contract, how many of those people settled on a house? The reason why I talk about those numbers is that maybe at the end of next year, I end up having to set 1 million appointments just to get them to show up. Let's say I set 100 appointments and only 50 people show up. I know my strength where I need to get better is my appointment set to met, because there's no sense. The reason why I'm saying this to everybody is there's no sense in being horrible at talking to people. If you have to talk to 200 people just to get 50 appointments set and you don't know that number, you're going to be talking to 1 million people and losing opportunities and wasting your time. So you have to know your set to met ratio, because you might be thinking you're great. Oh, I set 1 million appointments this year, and then find out no one showed up for those appointments. Well, maybe they're just trying to get off the phone with you. What I think we need to do is track those numbers. We need to track exactly how we progress, so that maybe at the end of the year, I go, well, I set 100 appointments and 90 people showed up. But when 90 people showed up, only 50 people hired me. Now I know maybe I got to get better in my consultation. I can say, where in my business do I need to be better? Because I know my met to signed ratio. I know exactly what my ratio is.
There's two ways you could do it. You could either say, I need to get better at my consultations, or, okay, next year I just have to go on 200 appointments then.
That's
you know?
right.
Yeah.
But most people want to get better in less time. They want to do the business in less time. And the only way
going up 200 appointments would take away from time, and that defeats the purpose. But there's probably people who say to themselves, okay, well, my conversion percentage is 50%. I want to get to 100 sales. I'm just going to meet with 200 people, versus looking internally and saying, why don't I just try to increase my percentage?
So I wish John was here. My business partner, who was with me all those years for 15 years, would literally sit down and say, if you only got better at talking to those people on the phone early on, you probably set a lot more appointments, Adam. But I hear you on the phone, and you have to talk to 5,000 people just to get to 38 deals, because you talk through people. And I didn't know my numbers. And then all of a sudden I realized, well, I'm setting 100 appointments, or let's say only 35% of the appointments I was setting was showing up. I was failing. But most people would say, well, Adam, you were doing 38 transactions. You must love your life. No, I wished I wasn't in the phone booth as much as I had to be. But until I realized, man, my set to met ratio is horrible, I better start listening to Phil Jones maybe at some point in life. I start listening to people and understanding and asking questions, my set to met ratio can go up. And then, but because the crazy thing for me is, everybody knows I meet with people and I do the consultation. Well, no one else was doing consultation. So my met to signed ratio was like a lock. So my business partner would say, you'd love your life a lot more if you learned how to speak to people in that phone booth, and you could get the consultations in less work. So this is why I'm telling everybody, it's first understanding your why. And now let's talk about what we're tracking, so that at the end of next year, I want you to be able to look at your goals and say, where can I get better? Even if I reached my goals, like where are my ratios? If people are hiring me and then they're never getting under contract, maybe my consultation's not that good. Maybe I need to get better at setting expectations. Or if I'm getting under contract and half my deals are falling apart in termination and we're not going to settlement, maybe I got to get better at being the guide, because it's not just good enough to get them to hire me. Maybe I want to take them to the top of the mountain, not just get them to hire me. That was a whole lot of numbers. Does anybody this is why we have to understand, I need to know how good I actually am. That's the truth of it. I need to be able to look at my wife in the eyes and go, I got to 40 deals this year, but I did it in this efficient way, because I set the met ratio went up by this percentage, and my showing people hired me percentage went up better. So I got to spend less time doing the same amount of deals that I did last year. That's awesome. Oh, by the way, average sale price went up because my client bought a next house. It wasn't their first house. And now average sale price went up, and now I made more money with the same amount of deals. Garrett, what are your thoughts? I know Kim's busy. What are your thoughts on that, man?
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. At the end of the day, we need to transition from being an agent to a business owner, and a business owner knows their numbers, right? We understand those things, right? At the same time, I'd also, show grace to anybody that that's a lot. Most of us get into this industry because we're high eyes, right? Like Adam, we're big personalities, or we just love people. And maybe you're introverted and you're more quiet. It's okay, but you just really love people. Well, the downside of people like us is that we're terrible at tracking and paying attention to numbers, right? So it is an area we need to grow in. And I absolutely agree with you. The goal is to reverse engineer. If you don't know what you're aiming for, you're never going to hit anything. And so to Adam's point, if I know I need to sell 50 homes or you need to sell 20 homes, which means you got to go on 30 appointments, which means you need 300 people in your database because you have a 10-to-1 ratio. Now at least you know what you're aiming for. I think the one thing that burns most people out is I have no idea if this is the right activity. I don't know if I have the right amount of people. I don't know if this is going to work. And that's an exhausting way to have a business, right? And then you can't say to, again, your family or your wife, like you're talking about, Adam, I can't say, hey, sorry, I got to miss dinner again. I'm going on an appointment. And she's like, you lose like 5 out of every 6. Like, why don't you just stay home this time? I want to be able to say, hey, I'm going on an appointment. I'm going to get this buyer and it's going to pay us out in 60 days. And, just know that I'm super sorry that I got to do this, X, Y, and Z, whatever. Or like, hey, this is a good thing. She says, go for it. I know you're going to win that appointment, whatever it is. You got to know your numbers. That's what business owners do. And we want to be business owners, not just agents.
But on the emotional side, we also want to get better. So that's what it took for me. Like it took for me to realize how much impactful knowing my numbers would show me where I needed to actually really get better. I love that you said this. I literally wrote down reverse engineering your goal. And I said, the reverse engineering, I put the notes, income goal, average price, sale price, average commission equals how many closings, which means how many agreements do you need to get signed, which means how many consultations need to have, which means how many appointments need to set, down to how many conversations and new people do I need to meet at the end of the day. But here's the thing. When you are tracking those numbers throughout the year, you don't have to be confused at the end of next year why you didn't get it. You're going to go, you know what? I'm not meeting new people. I'm not adding new people into my database, which means I'm not setting the appointments. When you know every one of those numbers throughout the year, you can change up what you're doing. You know what? Open houses isn't working. I'm not meeting new people. I'm not adding people to my database. I'm going to change up what I'm doing to get more people. Or open houses are working, but they're not showing up for the consultation or they're not hiring me. You don't know unless you know each of those numbers. Man.
Well, that's why those details matter so much too, because if, like you said, if open houses are working, okay, well, now can you do more, right? Like, do you have to just do them on Sundays? Can you do them on Saturdays? Could you do a Thursday night? Like, if you're killing it at open houses, do all the open houses then and put all your eggs in the open house basket if that's where all your clients are coming from.
Or if it's not working, find another way to do an open house that someone else did better if that's what you're insisting on doing. But you don't know if you're not tracking how many people you're meeting at those open houses. Okay, I did open houses. I met this many people. It led to this many transactions. If you can't look at that number, and this is where people are right now sitting here talking about creating their goals. It happens every November. I feel like we're going to do this next year and next year. It's going to click in somebody's head at some point that this is literally how you grow your business. It's not do business and then do this. It's do this, then get the business, and also truly be able to know. I want people to know if they're successful. I don't think people truly know if they're successful because they're confused by the transactions being success. And I'll get to that later. I'll get to my family later, because to grow in success, you have to actually forget your family for a year or 2 years or whatever they think. But I also think knowing these numbers gets us back to the unemployment mindset, which is then we do wake up every day and realize there has to be a plan. I actually have to be planned out. You can't just whimsically say, oh, how am I going to meet people? You actually put yourself into pressure to realize that my plan has to be, how am I finding ways to get job interviews? How am I increasing my ratios from set to met to signed? Anybody have any questions? By the way, buddy, you're going to keep coming on too. I'm going to have you keep coming on. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts? You can definitely raise your hand, comment, whatever you got to say. I do want to say this while waiting for everybody to raise their hand or put comments in the thing. One thing that I've been doing recently is I built a tracker that the academy uses, the coaching academy uses. It's a tracker that basically not only understands what your goals are and you put your numbers into that tracker, but it also will show you what your percentages are of set to met to signed. So you can have goals for, okay, 65% set to met. And so what I've been doing is scheduling 15-minute free calls with people to give them the tracker, but I can't just give you the tracker because you're never going to understand it unless I take some time to show it to you. So I'm going to put at the end of this a link so that you can schedule the 15-minute call if you want to get your goals in order. I'll spend some time, give you my tracker form so you guys can, at the end of next year, not only know where you are, but how you got there. So I want to make sure you guys know that Courtney just put it in the link. So just go ahead and go to the link if you're interested and want to actually know how I do it. I can take you through my actual tracker. What do you got to say, buddy? Kim, what do you got to say? Go ahead. What do you got?
No, I mean, again, I think that's absolutely right. You got to track. And I would encourage, the lead and lag indicators. I think that's from the 12-week year idea, but like the lead indicators, what am I doing each day? The lag indicators, what is the result? And I love that you're talking about tracking, because at the end of the day, the problem is not the lag indicator, right? I don't know why I'm not selling homes. The problem is your input, right? The input is the problem. The output is just a result of what the input is. I mean, that's literally all this is. And so when you don't understand what the input is, or we don't know, most agents that I've ever coached, I'm sure you all are similar, but their lead gen strategy is like 8 different things. Well, then I asked, like, tell me where your business came from. I don't know. And that's not to put anybody down. I was like that too. But if we don't know, then we don't know what to do. I don't know where to focus. I think Kim made the great point of, if open houses are working, and that's where your business is coming from, let's work not with the wind at our face, but the wind at our back. So if open houses are working, do that more and stop cold calling, or whatever the scenario is. Like, just understand, you don't have to do what the industry tells you to do. You should do what is working for you, because you're unique and you have your own unique skill set. And so I think when we pay attention to tracking and understanding where the business is coming from, that's where we really, I'll give you a super quick example. I'm coaching a guy right now.
Keep going.
Yeah, I'm coaching a guy right now. He does a lot of cold calling, and he does basically nothing in his sphere. He called me. He's like, I want to really help my sphere, right? And I said, all right, well, let's look at numbers. He hadn't looked at numbers yet this year, but he tracks a lot of things, right? He does a good job with that. He messaged me. He said, man, I've only sold 7. He sold like 18 this year. He said, I've only sold 7 from cold calling, but he spent like 500 hours this year, right? And he said, I've sold 6 from Sphere, and I probably spent like 3 hours. Man, I'm making a bad decision, right? And just having that understanding of, say, I'm not going to tell him to stop cold calling, but what if you cut that in half and you spend even 100 hours with your sphere for the whole year? That's 2 hours a week. Man, you're going to crush it. So if he didn't know that, he wouldn't know which direction to go. And I think we don't want to be lucky. We want to make data-driven decisions. That's what every good business owner does. And again, I agree with you fully. I think you're absolutely talking about the right thing. You got to start with just knowing what's going on, right? And then you can.
You know what's crazy? You said it earlier. Like, sometimes the worst thing that ever happens to people is deals start happening without them having a good system or process or plan to get there. So they don't know how they got there. They don't know what got them there. And then all of a sudden you deal with a roller coaster career where you never even know where you got to or how you got there. And then you're in divorce, or you're in a mess because your success is happening, but you don't even know how you got there. And I love that you said that earlier. Like, we need to start now knowing how we got to either our success or our failure so we can get better. Kim, what do you got in the darkness while you're sitting outside of T-Mobile praying for your phone to get together? What do you got?
I think everything that, Garrett just said, you need the data. You need to know what's working and what's not working, instead of just throwing a bunch of things at the wall and hoping something sticks, because you might be that guy that wasted 500 hours and he could have spent that 500 hours calling his sphere, or dropping gifts off at their door, or having a client holiday party, and that would have been way more beneficial to him.
I think about it like this. If I had done 50 deals, maybe I would have missed half Brianna's soccer games. Maybe I would have missed some sort of date with Jackie or something. But I did 38 deals and I didn't miss all of those things. Was I successful? Yes, I was. Was I successful against my goals? No, because I didn't really understand that those goals weren't really my goals. And so once I started understanding, it all gets back to this: why I have the goals, what I'm going to track, and how am I going to get there. And if you don't do all 3 of those things, you're going to be lost in real estate. Yes. What do you got? Oh, I love you, buddy. I want to make sure everybody sees this. Garrett, can you put the link? Do you have a link to get it? Can you put a link in it? And also, you can email it to me. Everybody's going to get this recording email to them. So if you find this, grab this book. And if you get the book, because Garrett, I called him, you can get it audio. I've been listening to this man's voice on my 6 miles walk. He doesn't even know how weird it is, but I've been hearing his voice, because when he sent me the book, and I said, man, I love you, but I cannot sit down. Can you get me an audio? And I got the audio, and I'm listening to him on my cold walks in the Northeast.
Bless
I'm
you.
so
Even
happy you joined
even my
us.
own wife doesn't want to listen to me for 6 hours, but I appreciate that.
Did he just say that?
I love you guys. I
Yeah.
gotta. My
Thanks,
wife actually
Garrett.
needs help with
You
the
gotta
kids,
go.
but man, Adam, thanks for
I'm
having
gonna
me,
say
buddy.
one more thing, but I gotta say
Yeah.
one more thing to you.
Please.
I say in my consultations, and I can't believe you just said that. I say in my consultations that instead of showing home, you don't want to see 8 homes with me on a Saturday. My wife doesn't even want to spend 8 hours with me on a Saturday. I say that in every consultation. The fact that you just said that is,
That's awesome.
man, we are brothers. We're brothers,
it.
man.
I love it,
All right,
man. Thanks for having
Good
me,
luck
buddy.
with the
Thank you.
kids. Thanks, Garrett.
Thank you.
No
See y'all.
Thank you.
Does anybody ever have any questions? I'm going to stick around if anybody has any questions because I want to make sure I give everybody opportunity. Kim, you can go. I know you've got to go to T-Mobile. You're in the dark now anyway. I'm going to
I
stick
am
around.
in the dark. All right. Goodbye,
Goodbye.
everyone.
I'm going to stick around in case anybody has
Good
thoughts
luck,
or
Kim.
questions. Nobody's got anything. Thank you guys very much. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Kat, all the way out on the West Coast. Thank you, Paulette. I'm going to see you guys.